Phase 4 verification and analysis is the turning point in a workplace investigation where the focus shifts from collecting information to testing it against those suspected of wrongdoing. If Phase 3 builds the puzzle, Phase 4 is where the investigator starts checking whether the pieces truly fit or whether some of them are misleading. At its core, this phase is about narrowing the field of possible responsible parties. Investigators do this through structured, focused interviews with individuals believed to be most directly involved. These interviews are not casual fact-gathering sessions. They are carefully controlled conversations designed to test explanations against established evidence. The aim is not only to challenge inconsistencies, but also, where appropriate, to obtain a voluntary admission of responsibility. A key distinction emerges between earlier administrative interviews and these investigative interviews. Administrative interviews are typically conducted with neutral witnesses to understand what happened. In contrast, investigative interviews are directed at individuals who are suspected of misconduct. While still non-accusatory in tone, they are more structured, strategic, and focused on resolving conflicting accounts and determining accountability. In many cases, a clear admission, if freely given, can satisfy the evidentiary threshold needed for disciplinary action. Some investigative models outline a structured, step-by-step interview approach. This may begin with careful preparation and planning, followed by an introduction that clarifies purpose and rules. The interviewer then presents the allegation and supporting evidence in a concise manner, creating an opportunity for the subject to respond. The conversation is gradually guided toward explanation and clarification, often using neutral language to reduce defensiveness. If an admission is made, it is then developed, documented in writing, confirmed orally, and formally recorded. The process typically concludes with administrative instructions such as suspension or leave, depending on the situation. Throughout this phase, credibility assessment becomes central. Investigators must weigh competing versions of events and determine which is more believable based on several factors: whether the account is logically consistent, whether the individual has a motive to mislead, whether statements are supported by independent evidence, whether stories remain consistent over time, and whether there are observable behavioral cues during questioning. These indicators are not used in isolation but are assessed collectively alongside objective evidence. Once all interviews and evidence reviews are complete, the investigator evaluates the total body of information. The standard applied is not the criminal threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt, but rather the civil standard of the balance of probabilities. In practical terms, this means a conclusion is reached when it is more likely than not that the alleged conduct occurred. Understood. Finally, legal defensibility often depends on adherence to what is known as the Cochrane standard. This principle holds that an employer's disciplinary decision can be upheld if it was made as a reasoned conclusion based on a fair investigation process. This includes providing notice of the allegations, allowing the individual an opportunity to respond, and basing the final decision on substantial, objective evidence. In essence, Phase 4 transforms investigation from information collection into disciplined evaluation, where evidence is tested, credibility is weighed, and conclusions are drawn in a structured and legally defensible way.